We are going.
Great.
All right. So welcome to another one of our series of Startup Without Burnout. Our special guest today or now is Terry Monahghan, the CEO of Time Triage, with over 30 years of business and entrepreneurial experience. So Terry's unique technology has dramatically increased the productivity of Fortune 100 executives and entrepreneurs in a variety of industries. So whether it's a corporate executive or a solopreneur like many of you, the outcome of Terry's methodology will give you an expanded level of freedom and productivity within results you can measure. So eliminating overwhelm, giving clients more time and clarity to focus, and implementing what it takes to produce results beyond what is predictable. And that's basically what Terry's efforts are all about. So her high integrity, no nonsense, practical approach to business really helped build trusted relationships with many high-performing professionals, entrepreneurs, executives, and got my attention. So we reached out to her, and she is being wonderful and gracious enough to grace us with her presence. And her recent work was featured in the New York Times best-selling Overwhelmed Work, Love, and Play When No One Has Time by Bridget Schulte. And that was released in 2014. So Terry, thank you.
Oh, happy to be here.
Yay. So we're basically just going to go over a bunch of questions that everyone was interested in and wanted to hear your path and kind of figure out how you got to where you are. And, be honest, don't pull any punches, because I know you deal with overwhelm, better than anybody else. So maybe you can give them some guidance. But the first question really is just, how did you know you were destined to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, great question. Very, very early on in my career, I was one of those people who always wanted to know who were these people who made up the rules for how things had to go. Because as far as I could tell, they made no sense. And they were counterproductive. And I needed to find these people so we could have a talk. So
how'd that go?
That's literally it. And actually, my first foray into entrepreneurship. I had been working at one of the big 8 accounting firms on a temporary assignment through an agency. And I finished that temporary assignment, and then one of the partners wanted me to work with him on a particular project. And I agreed to do it only if I could do it independently.
Okay.
So they actually paid the fee to the agency that I had been working through in order for me to do the project independently with them.
Wow. So that means your work basically spoke for itself.
Yes.
Very cool.
Exactly. Exactly. So that was the first foray. And then I continued doing that kind of work for different companies, and there was a point where they needed me to have my own equipment in my own space rather than come into their office. So that's when I opened my first office, invested in my first set of equipment. Now, this was a long, long time ago, and my very first business was doing word processing back before there were PCs.
Oh, wow.
I started very young, as you can tell.
Yes. So, and for all of those of you that don't know what that means that there was like Linux and DOS and typewriters and all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, even before DOS and Linux. I mean, seriously, there were no PCs. This was the dawn of PC. And I invested tens of thousands of dollars in the best word processing equipment available at the time. And I used to do just an enormous amount of word processing for different companies. So like if AT&T had a 200-page technical section for a proposal that they needed done overnight, they would send it to me.
Wow.
And in the morning, they would get the printout and the disk, and they knew, because they'd worked with me before, that it only needed to go through their editors once.
Right.
Basically, it was ready to just drop into the proposal. And so I did that for a long time, and then I went back to work for different companies in operations, because my forte really is having things work and having them work well and keeping them working.
Cool.
Right? unfortunately, this is part of my path, right? I would go into a company where the predominant culture is put out fires. It's a very familiar culture. And I can put out fires with the best of them. I just always was seeing what was causing the fire to begin with.
Good.
So I was automatically putting in a structure underneath, because same fire, different day is just really boring.
I'm kind of a disaster. And then FEMA gets right.
I could never really understand why were they so excited about this right now when they could see this thing coming for the last year and a half. Until, of course, I realized that they couldn't see it coming and that I could was a benefit.
Right.
But the problem with this is when you move a company from putting out fires all the time to what you're actually doing is planning and maintaining so that everything can run at a much higher level with much less drama, that doesn't look like work.
No.
They don't know what you're doing anymore, so they don't think that you're doing anything. And they figure you've done an awesome job for them, and things are running so smoothly, clearly they don't need you anymore.
So that actually takes me right into my next question of how you became a business owner. So you went from doing freelance to working for companies to...
Well, I worked myself out of 3 different positions in the fields of operations. Always with, moving them from a lot of putting out fires to operating at a much higher level, no fires, no drama. And the first time it took 5 years, but I was shocked, actually, when they decided they didn't need me anymore. With my skill set, obviously, I found another position right away, but I was shocked and stunned and not sure what had actually just happened. The second time, it only took me 18 months to work myself out of the position in a similar situation. And I remember thinking,
to work yourself out so that they didn't think you were doing anything?
Yeah. And I remember thinking that time, wow, they don't see what I see when I'm looking at something. That's really odd. I still didn't quite understand, right? Because it's so automatic for me. The third time, literally, I worked myself out of the position in 11 months flat.
Stop it.
I did. And I went, okay. They don't see what I see when I'm looking at something. That I do is a skill set.
Right.
So I said, okay, fine. I'm done with being on being on somebody else's payroll, like there's security in that, right? And I'm back to, I just started coaching people in what it would take to produce results. And that was 18 years ago, and it's evolved into the consulting that I'm doing today.
Wow. Congratulations. That's awesome. So you basically saw what you were doing and you understood the value of it. And even though maybe other people took longer to see the value and then, oh wait, you're gone and they can't even do anything about it now because you're not there anymore.
Right.
But you parlayed that into an actual coaching business to make people better. That's fabulous. So let me ask you, how long did it take you to reach, let's just say, financial success?
Well, since I didn't have an alternative, right? You putting me on hold?
Sorry, we're going to edit that out. My dog just went insane. So it's like when you work from home and you're like, you've got a giant dog. So I'll be editing.
Not to worry. I have a semi-senile cat who is at the other end of the condo right now, and every so often he just calls out because he's gotten lost in the bedroom.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad that they can find their way out. That's good. I love my animals.
Exactly. So,
hold on.
Yep.
He's gone insane. He found this.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't find that. All right. Anyway. All right, take a pause and then answer so I can actually edit that out if you would, please.
Okay, why don't you start again with the question?
Oh, okay, fine. All right, so what I wanted to ask you is how long did it take you to reach a level of financial success where you were considered to have made it?
Great question. Honestly, when I started, I didn't have an alternative. So not being solvent was not an option.
I understand that.
Right?
Yep.
So I had to start right at the get-go with generating enough business to cover the bills, personal and business bills, generate enough business to cover my own growth and investing in my own growth, the mentors that I've worked with, the courses that I've taken, the additional training I've gotten in my field. Literally, I had no alternative. If I didn't sell business, I wouldn't eat.
So, and this isn't one of the questions that we actually pre-did for you, but the question that it automatically goes into is how much of your business is sales?
How much of my business is sales?
Yeah.
Well, as the owner of the business, the bulk of my job is business development. So it's one of my mentors said I needed to be spending about 80% of my time on business development.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm not yet at 80% of my time on business development, but honestly, if I'm not in delivery if I'm not delivering some business that I've sold, I'm doing sales.
Okay.
Because that's the only time I make any money.
And I think that's good for people to realize that a good portion of your day-to-day, whether in whatever company you're in, whatever job you're in, whatever role you're in, you're selling, and you're selling yourself, and you're selling your business, you're selling your prowess, and you're selling your skills, because a lot of people go into business thinking, oh, I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at sales. Well, figure it out, because you're going to be good at sales.
If you don't sell, you don't make any money. And that's the only time you're actually making any money. Right. Is when you're selling business. And it's funny because I don't think honestly that I'm selling my skills. I think I'm selling my clients on actually accomplishing the goals they've set for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that what I can do is help them get there faster.
Cool.
So it's selling them on what they already want.
Right. Yeah. So then what do you feel is the best action step if our viewers are thinking about either starting a business or growing their business? How can they implement right now to grow? This is what you do, so I figured I'd ask you.
Yeah. Well, so if I just look at the way that I work with all of my clients, even when I work with those who are just getting started, we start with their strategy, the why are they doing what they are doing? What's their goal? What is it they want to accomplish? What is the accomplishment of that goal going to make available to them, right? Because if you lose sight of why you're building something, it can just get to be a real slog really quick, right? Just there's all these things you have to do, and what's the point, and it's not what you wanted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the more clear you are about what you want, then you can actually start designing it to fulfill on what you want. And this, I think, is one of the biggest pitfalls. You know, your topic is about startup without burnout. One of the biggest pitfalls and what leads people to burnout is they buy into this notion that they have to work insane hours. They have to do everything. They have to do it all themselves. And that is counterproductive. And the startups that I've worked with and the entrepreneurs that I've worked with, we set them up from the beginning to work in a way that they're already fulfilling the things that are most important to them.
That's fabulous.
So,
and it's about
like a lot of us start our businesses because we want some freedom. Mm-hmm. And then we have the worst possible bosses in the world and no freedom at all.
Exactly.
And I think that's just insane. It's not like you're going to work to a particular point and then you can be free. No, let's start with the notion that you actually are free and you can actually design your life and your business in a way that works for you and produces the results you want to produce. And let's see what it'll take to do it that way. I'm not a fan of working ourselves into the ground. And I know from all of my reading in And I know from all of my reading in, neuroscience and things like that, that we pretty much, our productivity peaks at around 30 hours, 30. It incrementally increases, but only slightly up until about 50 hours. And then it starts going backwards and it falls off a cliff between 60 and 70 hours. That is, you seriously are doing yourself a disservice because you're going to have to spend more time fixing what got done wrong, right? So if you know that you're going to hit your peak at 30 hours, why not design a schedule where that's what you're doing?
That's brilliant.
I thought so.
No, but it is. I mean, it's like, when people read the book, your 4-hour work week, and, granted, the 4-hour work week, let's be honest, it's never going to happen. I mean, thank you for a great writer and a wonderful idea, but limiting yourself to 30 and no more than 50, even if it's a push week.
Right. Well, and the thing too is it's looking at what is it that you're doing during those 30 hours. Mm-hmm. That's where I find the biggest problem is, because so many people are losing so much of their time to administrivia or those things that really are not going to move the dial.
Yep.
And, if you're going to confront the reality that you may only have 90 minutes in the course of a day, or if you're really lucky, maybe 3 hours, to move the dial, then you got to be really disciplined and focused about what are you doing in those 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And then let the rest of the world happen, let the other interruptions and everybody else's agenda and the email and everything else that's going to interrupt you or derail you happen after you've done that. I did a talk several years ago for a group called the Enterprising Moms. Mm-hmm. And this was a whole group of working mothers who were working from home for the most part. Some of them had 7-figure businesses. But they were all doing their own businesses, partly because they needed to accommodate the fact that they had families, they had young children, whether they had help at home or not. And one of the women said she couldn't believe it when I said that most executives indicated in a survey that they only had about 45 minutes to focus on what was most important in the day. Wow. So she decided to see what would happen if she took 90 minutes at the beginning of the day. She was an early bird, before her kids even got up, and focused on, in that 90 minutes, the things she needed to do to build her business. Those things that Covey calls important but not urgent.
Yes.
So she didn't think it would make a big difference. But what she did discover was it had an immediate impact on her peace of mind, because no matter what happened with her kids, the rest of the day, she knew the most important work had already been done.
Cool.
But the result was, in 3 months, she tripled her business.
Wow.
Just by taking that 90 minutes all together in one go, first thing in the morning, before the rest of the world had an opportunity to interrupt. And that's one of the keys, is you've got to manage the interruptions, or your entire day is going to be trashed.
So that actually flips my whole schedule up on its head, because I'm big on routine and I'm big on schedule, and I go to the gym and I drop my daughter off, and I've got everything pretty regimented because I run a company, right?
Yeah.
But working first thing in the morning, has never appealed to me.
I'm not a morning person. It wouldn't be my choice either. It's not for everybody. I mean, in your situation, I would say you do your morning routine, you go to the gym, you drop off your daughter, but then when you hit your office, the first 90 minutes or the first 45 minutes should be uninterrupted, focused on what's going to build your business.
Time. This is work.
Yeah. This is the real work. Okay. Let's face it. This is the real work. This is when I'll do my outreach. So, I mean, my early morning stuff is reading. I read the newsletters that come in, the articles that I subscribe to in my field. I do that reading first thing, because that's important to me. Otherwise, I'm never going to get around to it.
Right.
It's the last thing I want to do in the evening.
Right.
Right?
So then, okay, so because we're in the routine talk, most successful people actually do have a daily routine,
Yeah.
or a ritual, or at least some sort of structure. And I get when you read your articles and stuff, but what's your actual routine? How do you get through your day?
Okay, let's see. I get up in the morning, I wash my face, I feed the cats.
We're getting
They would
granular.
prefer I feed them first and then wash, but it's not going to go that way. I make a cup of coffee. I sit down and I read the paper while I'm drinking my coffee. I take a walk with one of my neighbors. I live in a complex where we've got a mile walking track around the property.
Cool.
And the structure to support me in getting my ass out there is to do it with one of my neighbors. So she texts, got my shoes on my way. And I said, okay, heading down. And we go and walk a couple of miles. And then I come back up, shower, and I hit my office. I actually do look at my email first thing, but I'm only looking to see, is there anything that has come in overnight that's going to impact what I already have scheduled for today?
Got it.
Because I've already worked out my plan for today yesterday.
Right.
Otherwise, it can wait, and I turn off the email. And then I go into the things that I have said were the most important tasks for me to complete. It may be doing follow-up calls with people that I've met. It could be sending out, working on a proposal, working on a webinar, working on a workshop. I'm leading a workshop tomorrow. So a lot of this week has been finalizing everything I need to do to lead that. It may be doing some writing, finishing up some case studies for my next book. You can see those are all important, but not urgent. They're not like hair on fire screaming.
Right.
And they're easy enough to put off if I don't have that dedicated time to do it.
Yeah, no, I do that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I do too, which is why I box myself in.
Uh-huh.
And then usually in the afternoons would be when I would schedule phone calls, coaching calls, client meetings, if I have client meetings or Skype meetings. A lot of my coaching and consulting is done by phone or Skype. There are a few clients I have locally where we do meet once a month, but they're always scheduled in advance, and it's usually on the weekend, in the afternoons, so that I always make sure I get my most important things done. Oh, the other thing is, the business development. I have a commitment to make a certain number of phone calls every single day, and honestly, it's not my favorite thing to do. So I do it in the morning.
Got it.
Get it out of the way rather than having it hang over my head all day long.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing, and the way I do it also is I make sure, okay, I'm doing this kind of call right now. So the whole point of the call, before I even pick up the phone, I know what it is I'm trying to accomplish in the call. It's not a long call. I'm calling to schedule a call, or I'm calling to schedule a meeting, or I'm calling just to touch base. I'm calling to touch base with a current or past client. What is the point of the call? So I don't usually mix them up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll do 5 calls to prospects, to people that I've met, to set up a call or just touch base. I'll do 5 calls to follow up people who were at a luncheon that I went to yesterday. Just, hey, it was really great to meet you. Loved hearing about what you're doing, right?
Now, do you do emails or calls more for those?
I do calls and follow up with emails.
Okay.
Because it's so, it's very funny. I had somebody mention one time when I called her that she was used to doing all of her follow up by email, and she was shocked that I picked up the phone and called and said, "Hey,
yeah,
great to meet you. I'd love to set up a time to find out more about what you do, so I know who you need to meet."
I love it. So it's not always going in with an agenda, but you're actually saying, okay, how can I help you? How can I be in service to you?
Yes,
I like
exactly.
That. Very
exactly.
cool.
Well,
Okay.
I'm always looking for resources that my clients can use.
That's
And
awesome.
it frankly was the introvert's coping mechanism for networking.
But it works though, and that's something
It
very
does.
genuine. And when I do any sort of sales training, I always say, hey, go in, offering solutions and expert advice. Don't go in with an agenda. You don't need to always have an agenda. You don't always need to make a sale. Maybe that next guy that you're meeting is going to introduce you to the 4 next sales, but you don't have to get him to close. And it's, yeah, so
Right.
I like that you do that. So one other thing on this is what's the number one thing that will prevent burnout? Because we touched on it briefly, but what prevents the burnout? Since you're the one that sets up entrepreneurs to do what they do and to give themselves enough time and to put that structure in, what prevents the burnout?
Strong boundaries. That's one.
Yeah.
Just strong boundaries. The other is doing your job, not everybody else's, which is one of the hardest things for people to do.
Yeah.
I tend to work with a lot of control freaks. So do your job. But the boundaries is the biggie. It's throwing more time at the problem is not going to give you the result you want. Working focused on something that's going to move the dial is going to give you the result you want.
Got it.
Right? So it's what are those things? With most of my clients, one of the first things we do is we identify the 2 or 3 things that they really need to focus on. That's going to make the biggest difference in their goals, in their business, in their revenue, in their income, in their sanity. And we sort of create a plan for how everything else is going to be dealt with. But, how and when are you going to do this? Because this is the stuff that's going to make the difference.
Right. And
Ultimately, if your papers are filed, it's not going to matter. Right? So as an example, I had one client who's a very successful realtor. She was already a very successful realtor when she hired me during the recession. And we identified the 3 things that put money in her pocket as developing relationships with prospects, clients, vendors, referral sources, mm-hmm. negotiating contracts, mm-hmm. and playing with her children. Not sending out her newsletters, not putting up and taking down signs, not anything else, but those 3 things.
Playing with her children.
Playing with her children. Because she came back to work refreshed.
Got it.
And back in touch with why she was doing what she was doing in the first place. It didn't work for her that she was working all hours of the night and would get home after the kids were in bed.
Right, because that's what her why was.
Exactly.
So this is all, have you noticed this whole interview has all gone full circle and you're all about the why, so.
Well, because it's what drives everything.
That's awesome.
It's what shapes how you design your day. It's what shapes what you prioritize. Mm-hmm. Right? And too many people prioritize by what's screaming the loudest.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, no. I can tell you like to be a little bit more proactive.
There are true, honest to God emergencies. Like earthquakes,
right?
Fires, right? Then there's drama. Traffic is not an emergency. Weather is not an emergency.
Right.
A kid being sick is actually not an emergency. If you have kids, there have to be plans.
Right.
For how do you deal with all the different contingencies? This is the same thing I said, same fire, different day is boring. If you know these things are going to happen, they are predictable.
Yep.
They're unpredictable in their timing, but that they're going to happen is predictable.
Right.
What are you going to do? You have to have a plan for it. It can't be a surprise.
Yeah, you're better about that than me. When my kid gets sick, I'm like, all right. So
well, no, I had this.
I have a takeaway from this. I will get a plan. Thank you. All right.
Okay, good. And it has to be like a plan B through Z because,
Okay, listen, now you're just going too far.
One backup never works. You need to have a backup to the backup.
Well,
but no, the thing is when I do work with people on how they do their planning, a lot of it includes when there is a monkey wrench thrown into their plan. It doesn't have to derail them entirely. They can quickly assess and rework the plan to accommodate the new circumstances or the change in circumstances.
got it. So guys, if you're listening to this, everybody needs a Terry. Just letting you know, everyone needs a Terry. Okay, so well, thank you for everything, and I think you've basically, gone through what's going to prevent burnout and the one thing to grow your business. But later tonight, we're actually going to be sending out a link to an awesome gift that you're giving out to our listeners. And can you just kind of give a little sneak peek and tell them what it is?
I can. One of the biggest time sucks for almost everybody I work with is how they're dealing with their email.
Everybody needs a Terry. Anyway.
I mean, studies indicate it's eating up 3 hours or more of the day just trying to get through the inbox. And it's not 3 hours altogether. It's, confetti here and there. And it eats right into the statistic that, we're going to be interrupted once every 3 minutes, one way or the other. And it's going to take us 23 minutes to get our focus back on what we were working on. Now, I can't be the only one who realizes that math doesn't work. Right? So I did a class quite some time ago called 6 Steps to Taking Control of Your Email, which is really just 6 simple steps to taking something that eats up 30 minutes of your day, which is dealing with what's coming into the inbox.
Sure.
And not the work that's there, but just, the study said people are spending 3 hours a day just trying to sort through their inbox. Sick and twisted, if you don't think this is a problem, that's 19 and a half weeks a year. Just trying to get through your inbox.
Right.
Without doing any of the work. That's just getting through what's come in.
Wow.
That's 19 and a half weeks. That's kind of crazy. And the methodology that I use in this 6 Steps to Taking Control of Your Email has reduced the amount of time people are spending on their inbox by at least 2/3, if not more. Mine is down to, I actually was using a tracking software at one point recently to discover I now spend less than 30 minutes a day on my inbox. And I'm probably getting 200 or 300 emails a day. Nothing's dropping through the cracks. So I'm gifting people the course, the workbook and the recording.
That is amazing. Oh, what an awesome, awesome gift. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, if anybody needs to find you, obviously they can opt into your gift, but how else can they find you?
They can find me. My email is Terry, Terry, at timetriage.com. The website's timetriage.com. I'm on Facebook as Time Triage. Do you think there's a theme here?
There's a theme. Apparently you're branded. So that's good.
Twitter is at Time Triage.
Got it. Okay. So
LinkedIn is Terry Monahghan. You'll find me there.
Okay. All right. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. This was really cool, very epic. And thank you for the gift for everybody. I think it landed a lot of insight today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Happy to contribute.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.